Tao Te Ching, timeless lessons from Lao Tzu for those seeking their true path. Have you ever wondered why, even after achieving everything you once desired, you still feel an inexplicable emptiness inside? Why, despite all your effort, success, and accomplishments, there remains a restlessness you can't name, a thirst you can't seem to quench. More than 2,500 years ago, a Chinese sage named Lao Tzu uncovered three fundamental truths about human nature. Truths that can radically transform how you relate to suffering, success, and life itself. The first truth goes against everything our hyper-competitive society teaches us about personal achievement. The second will reveal why you often feel lost, even when it seems like you're in control of everything. And the third may forever change how you view your purpose in this world and your connection to something greater than yourself. These aren't just abstract philosophies from a distant time. They are living principles tested by millions over centuries. Principles that can become a compass for navigating the chaos of modern life. Without losing your essence, without sacrificing your humanity at the altar of productivity or social expectations. In the next few minutes, we'll dive deep into the most essential verses of the Tao Te Ching and discover how these ancient lessons can move beyond intellectual understanding and become embodied wisdom that transforms how you live, decide, speak, love, and breathe. Hello, and warmly, deeply welcome to Axiom Sage, your refuge of timeless Eastern wisdom. I want to begin today's journey with something we rarely do in our fast-paced world, truly acknowledging your presence here. The fact that you're here now, dedicating this precious time to explore life's deeper questions, is no accident. It reflects something alive within you, a hunger for authenticity, a search for meaning beyond the superficial metrics of success that our society glorifies. Before we begin our journey today, I want to invite you to do something simple, yet powerful. Pause the outside world for a moment. Turn off your phone notifications. Close other browser tabs. Take a deep breath and allow yourself to be fully here now. Because what we're about to explore together isn't just more content to passively consume. It's a real invitation to connect with a wisdom that has crossed thousands of years, survived empires, wars, and revolutions to arrive in your hands in this exact moment. Breathe consciously with me now. Inhale slowly through your nose. Feel the air entering your lungs. And exhale gently, releasing any tension you might be holding. Feel free to close your eyes if it helps you connect more deeply to what we're about to share. I'm genuinely honored and grateful that you're here. Your presence is not a coincidence. It's a reflection of your sincere search for growth, for self-knowledge, for a life of real meaning. And that, in itself, is something to celebrate. Over the years, thousands of people touched by these journeys through Eastern wisdom have not only changed their perspectives, they've transformed the way they live, the way they work, the way they relate to others, and the way they find peace amidst the chaos of modern life. I know you may be going through challenges right now. Maybe you're questioning choices you've made. Maybe you feel disconnected from your purpose. Or maybe you're just seeking a more harmonious way to navigate the weight and speed of contemporary life. Whatever your situation is, I want you to know you are in the right place at the right time. The wisdom we'll explore today does not offer quick fixes or magic formulas. Instead, it offers something far more valuable, a profound understanding of the fundamental principles that govern a life of authenticity, balance, and inner clarity. Did you know that the main cause of your suffering isn't the external circumstances of your life, but rather your constant resistance to the natural flow of existence? That you're wasting precious energy trying to control the uncontrollable, while neglecting your true power to influence what really matters. Lao Tzu, the mysterious author of the Tao Te Ching, a man so legendary that some historians question whether he ever existed, discovered something that may seem contradictory at first. When we stop forcing and begin to flow with life, something extraordinary happens. Life doesn't just become easier, it begins to move in our favor in ways our limited minds could never plan or anticipate. Think about water for a moment. It is soft, flexible, seemingly without force. And yet, over time, water carves the grandest canyons, moves the heaviest stones, and finds its way through every obstacle. Not through brute force, but through gentle persistence, through its ability to adapt, to always find the path of least resistance without ever giving up on its final destination. But slow down. Let's move gently, like the very water we just contemplated. Because true wisdom is not conquered through violent effort. It is cultivated through patience, through careful observation, through a willingness to question even our deepest assumptions about how life is supposed to work. Today, you and I will begin planting seeds of insight, seeds that may blossom in your life in ways you can't yet imagine, seeds that can transform your relationship with your work, your relationships, your challenges, your limitations, and most importantly, your relationship with the person you are when no one else is watching. Are you ready for a journey that may challenge everything you believe about success, control, and happiness? Then take one more deep breath, and let's begin our exploration into the deepest and most transformative pages of Eastern wisdom. To truly understand the depth of the Tao Te Ching, we must first travel back in time. Imagine, for a moment, the year 600 BCE. The world was completely different from ours, and yet the core dilemmas of the human condition were surprisingly similar. China was experiencing what historians call the Spring and Autumn period, a time of intense political fragmentation. When small kingdoms constantly warred with one another, corruption was rampant, traditional values were collapsing, and a new social order had yet to emerge. It was an era of great uncertainty, collective anxiety, and a desperate search for meaning, not so different from our own. It was in this landscape of chaos and transformation that a man named Lier lived, later known as Lao Tzu, meaning old master or venerable elder. But here's something fascinating. Unlike other great thinkers of his time, who were public teachers, founders of schools, or advisors to kings, Lao Tzu chose a completely different path. According to tradition, he worked as an archivist in the imperial library of the Zhou dynasty. Picture this: day after day, year after year, he handled and studied the historical records of his people. He observed the same patterns repeating over and over: unchecked ambition, power struggles, glorious rises followed by inevitable downfalls. Lao Tzu became a silent observer of human nature. He saw how the powerful became corrupted by their own power, how the wise lost themselves in their theories, how ordinary people suffered, not only from external circumstances, but more deeply from their unrealistic expectations of how life should be. He also observed the natural world, how trees bent in storms rather than breaking, how water always found its way, how natural cycles unfolded without rush, but without pause, how there seemed to be a deep intelligence operating through all phenomena. Eventually, legend says Lao Tzu could no longer bear it. The futility of ambition, the needless violence, the constant struggle against natural harmony. Disillusioned with the human condition, he set out westward on a water buffalo, a symbol of simplicity and gentle strength, seeking solitude, peace, and perhaps a deeper understanding. When he reached the Hanga Pass, at the western border of China, the gatekeeper, a man named Yin Shi, sensed something unusual in the traveler. There was a serenity in his eyes, a wisdom in every gesture, a calm that stood in stark contrast to the chaos of the times. "Master," the guard said, "you cannot leave without first offering us your wisdom. It will be a tragedy for humanity if the insight I see in you vanished into the mountains." And so, Lao Tzu wrote what would become the Tao Te Ching, literally the Book of the Way and its virtue, a collection of only 81 short chapters, composed in poetic and often paradoxical language. It would become one of the most influential spiritual texts in human history. Think about this. A man seeking to escape society ended up giving society one of its greatest gifts. A book born from a desire for simplicity became the source of endless interpretation. A text written from a longing for silence became one of the most powerful voices in world literature. But here's what most people don't realize about the Tao Te Ching, and it's absolutely vital for our journey today. This is not a book of abstract philosophy for scholars. It's not a theoretical treatise on Eastern metaphysics. It is a practical manual, almost scientific in its clarity, for navigating the complexity of human life without losing your essence, without sacrificing your humanity. The word Tao, introduced in the very first line and flowing through the entire book, is fundamental. Usually translated as the way, it means something much richer, far more multidimensional than Western language can easily express. The Tao is the primal force that gave birth to the universe, what existed before creation itself. It is the organizing principle that governs everything, from a movement of stars, to the unfolding of a flower, to the breath you're taking right now. It is the natural flow of life, beyond comprehension, beyond control. But the Tao is not just a cosmic force. Lao Tzu teaches that there is a personal Tao, your unique way in this world, your authentic way of expressing your essence, your particular contribution to the greater tapestry of existence. And there is also a universal Tao, the harmony that underlies all life, the intelligence that holds it all together. The key is learning to align these two. When your personal Tao is in harmony with the universal Tao, life flows, doors open, opportunities appear, relationships deepen, not because you force it, but because you're aligned with something greater. But here's something rarely talked about, something that can completely transform your relationship with control, uncertainty, and anxiety. The first verse of the Tao Te Ching is revolutionary, especially for our Western mindset. The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the true name. At first glance, it might sound like a clever paradox. But what Lao Tzu is doing here is radical. He's questioning the very foundation of Western civilization, our belief that intellectual understanding equals power. What's even more amazing, modern science is beginning to confirm many of Lao Tzu's intuitive insights. Quantum physics shows that reality is far more fluid and interconnected than we perceive. Heisenberg's uncertainty principle reveals fundamental limits to what we can know and control. Neuroscience, it confirms that mental resistance to events, "it shouldn't be like this," causes more stress than the events themselves. Positive psychology shows that lasting happiness comes not from achieving goals, but from flowing with life, finding meaning in the process, not just the outcome. So what does this mean practically? It means that what matters most in life happens beyond your mind's ability to define, label, or control. Think of your most meaningful experiences: the birth of a child, a moment of deep connection, a sunset that left you speechless, a sudden insight that changed everything. That quiet sense of peace that comes out of nowhere. Can you really describe them in words? Do words capture their essence? When you try to explain them, doesn't something essential get lost? That's what Lao Tzu is pointing to. The most authentic life happens in that indescribable space, beyond our frantic efforts to define and control everything. We live in a culture addicted to explanation, especially in the digital age. We're trained to believe that information equals power, that if we can just understand enough, we'll finally fix everything. We binge endless videos, podcasts, books, self-help courses, always searching for that perfect formula. But Lao Tzu offers a radically different invitation. There's a higher intelligence flowing through life. Your wisdom lies not in trying to control it, but in learning how to cooperate with it. And let me share something personal with you. I spent the first 30 years of my life trying to control every variable. Meticulous planning, backup plans for backup plans, constant anxiety, always living a step ahead of the present, always resisting what was in order to impose what I thought should be. Especially in my career, I had spreadsheets, quarterly goals, productivity systems, networking strategies. I was on it all the time, and yet I constantly felt behind, restless, disconnected. Then I discovered the Tao Te Ching, and not just intellectually, I started living it. And something shifted. I began letting go of control in small but powerful ways. I stopped forcing conversations. I stopped trying to impress. I started listening. I started trusting. And here's the surprising part. Opportunities began to appear. Connections deepened. Projects unfolded that I could never have planned. It felt like the universe had been waiting for me to stop forcing, so it could finally deliver what was truly aligned with who I am. Before we continue and go even deeper into the insights that can completely transform the way you navigate life, take a moment, breathe, let this sink in. You're not here to control everything. You're here to cooperate with life. You're here to align with the Tao. If these reflections are resonating with you, if you feel we're building something meaningful together, if you sense there are layers of wisdom here that deserve to be explored more deeply, then I want to offer you a special invitation. This isn't just about clicking the subscribe button, though yes, that's important so you don't miss our next gatherings. It's about something more profound, a commitment to yourself, to your own journey of transformation and self-discovery. When you subscribe to Axiom Sage, you're not just getting notifications for new videos. You're joining a community of sincere seekers. People who, like you, recognize that life has layers of meaning worth exploring, and who understand that real growth requires both courage and patience. In the comments of our videos, you'll find deep and respectful conversations about the themes that truly matter. People sharing their insights, their doubts, their moments of awakening. It's a rare space on the internet, a place where we can talk about the existential without judgment or superficiality. With each new video, we'll keep unfolding these timeless teachings in ways that you can genuinely apply to your everyday life. Not abstract theory, but practical wisdom for the very real challenges you face. How to find peace in the midst of chaos. How to make decisions aligned with your essence. How to stay grounded in a world that's constantly pulling you out of balance. Your presence in this community inspires us to continue. Every comment, every share, every moment of genuine connection reminds us why this work matters. So if you feel like you belong here, click the subscribe button now and turn on notifications. But more importantly, leave a comment below sharing which insight from today resonated most with you. Your voice enriches our collective path. Now, take a deep breath with me, and let's go even deeper, because what I'm about to share with you might forever change how you see success, efficiency, and the very idea of making it happen. We now enter the very heart of Taoist wisdom, a territory that may seem completely contradictory to everything we've been taught about achieving goals and pursuing success. The second core teaching of the Tao Te Ching is something Lao Tzu called Wu Wei, literally translated as non-action or action without effort. But before you assume this is about passivity or laziness, let's clarify something essential. Wu Wei isn't about doing nothing. It's about doing everything in a completely different way. A way that can dramatically increase your effectiveness while drastically reducing stress and burnout. Imagine for a moment a master of Aikido, a martial art that beautifully embodies the principles of the Tao Te Ching. When a powerful opponent rushes at him with brute force, the master doesn't resist. He doesn't try to overpower or outrun the attack. Instead, he redirects the opponent's energy. His movements are smooth, flowing, almost like a dance. And the result? Maximum efficiency with minimal effort. Maximum impact with minimal resistance. The opponent ends up on the ground, often without understanding exactly how it happened. In your own personal or professional life, Wu Wei translates into something revolutionary. The ability to recognize when you're swimming upstream and when you're flowing with the current. Even more importantly, it means knowing when direct action is needed and when your interference might actually get in the way of the natural unfolding of events. Let me give you a personal example. A few years ago, I became fixated on landing a specific professional opportunity. I had planned it down to the detail. It made sense on paper. It looked perfect. I did everything I could. Called, emailed, presented, negotiated, I practically begged. Each rejection, or maybe later, only fueled my obsession. I was convinced that if I just worked harder, pushed harder, it would finally happen. After months of exhausting struggle with no result, I remembered the teachings of Lao Tzu, and especially Wu Wei, and I did something deeply counterintuitive. I let go, not of my greater purpose, but of that particular path. Instead of forcing closed doors, I turned inward. I focused on becoming the kind of person who would naturally attract the opportunities one was chasing. I cultivated patience. I opened myself to new directions I hadn't considered. 3 months later, something extraordinary happened. An even better opportunity came along from someone I never even reached out to. They had been watching my work quietly and felt aligned. There was no need to convince, sell, or force. The right door opened on its own the moment I stopped pounding on the wrong one. Now, I know that for many of you, especially those raised in competitive environments, this idea of letting go of control may feel deeply uncomfortable. We've been conditioned to believe that unless we're constantly pushing, striving, and grinding, we'll fall behind. But here's something Lao Tzu saw clearly 2,500 years ago, and which modern psychology confirms. Most of the energy we spend fighting isn't productive. It's wasted on internal resistance, overthinking, and trying to control the uncontrollable. When you're in Wu Wei, you're not doing less. You're being infinitely wiser about where to place your energy. You focus on what you can truly influence, while aligning with what you cannot. Lao Tzu often uses water as the perfect metaphor for Wu Wei, and it's worth exploring deeply. Water is the softest element. It has no fixed shape. It conforms to whatever vessel it enters. When it meets an obstacle, it doesn't try to destroy it. It flows around it. It penetrates it. It finds the path of least resistance. And over time, this weak water carves the deepest canyons, moves massive stones, and reshapes entire landscapes. It always reaches its destination, the ocean, no matter how many detours it must take. So how does this apply practically to your life? It means developing what I call fluid intelligence. the ability to sense when the moment calls for decisive action, and when it calls for patience, listening, and trust. And here's the paradox. The more you cultivate Wu Wei, the more the world begins to move with you, rather than against you. The opportunities, clarity, relationships, and timing you've been forcing begin to flow in, often from directions you never expected. Because you're no longer blocking the current, you're finally aligned with it. In relationships, for example, Wu Wei means recognizing when someone needs space to process their emotions, instead of forcing conversations or pushing for immediate solutions. It means knowing when your silent presence is more powerful than 1,000 well-intentioned words. At work, Wu Wei manifests as the wisdom to honor the natural rhythms of creativity and productivity. Instead of forcing insights when your mind is saturated, you learn to alternate between focused action and contemplative receptivity. But there's a much deeper layer to Wu Wei that few people understand. And this is absolutely crucial for anyone seeking not just success, but a truly meaningful and authentic life. Wu Wei also applies to your relationship with yourself. It means stopping the internal battle against aspects of your personality you've been conditioned to see as flaws, and learning to work with your essential nature instead of against it. If you're naturally introverted, Wu Wei means honoring your need for solitude and reflection, instead of forcing yourself to be extroverted just because society seems to value that more. If you're naturally sensitive, it means recognizing that sensitivity as a gift, something that allows deeper connection, instead of trying to harden yourself just to fit into a world that celebrates emotional detachment. This doesn't mean resigning yourself to real limitations or using your personality as an excuse to avoid growth. It means recognizing that your most authentic growth will come through deepening your natural strengths, not denying them. Now let's go one step further, and this may sound radical. Lao Tzu suggests that the true revolution doesn't happen in the outer world. It happens in your inner world. And that inner revolution has the power to not only transform your personal experience, but to positively impact everyone around you. The third core principle of the Tao Te Ching is what Lao Tzu calls a return to original simplicity, a kind of soul archaeology where you gradually remove layers of social conditioning, external expectations, and artificial identities until you rediscover your most authentic essence. Take a moment and reflect. How many of your ambitions are truly your own? And how many were inherited from your family, absorbed from culture, or imposed by the expectations of the environment you grew up in? How many of your fears are based on real danger? And how many are imagined scenarios created by a mind conditioned to anticipate the worst? How much of your need for external approval is really about genuine human connection? And how much is about validating an identity that was never truly yours? Lao Tzu proposes a process he calls unlearning. It's the gradual release of mental programming that separates us from our natural intuitive wisdom. This doesn't mean rejecting all knowledge or becoming naive. It means cultivating the ability to discern between wisdom that serves your evolution and mental noise that fuels anxiety or comparison. For years, I carried a deeply ingrained belief that I had to constantly prove my worth. Every project, every relationship, every opportunity felt like a test, a moment to demonstrate I was smart enough, talented enough, dedicated enough. That constant need for validation kept me in a state of perpetual tension. Even when I succeeded, the satisfaction never lasted, because there was always another test, another moment where I might fail and confirm some imagined fundamental inadequacy. Only when I started practicing this return to simplicity did something liberating happen. I realized that the need to constantly prove myself wasn't a natural drive, it was a conditioned pattern I had absorbed unconsciously. And when I began to honestly question that programming, something extraordinary emerged. I discovered that my most authentic motivation didn't come from needing to prove anything, but from a natural curiosity, a genuine desire to contribute, and a simple joy in the act of creating and connecting. The same activities that once felt like pressure became natural sources of pleasure. Work became expression, not performance. Relationships became authentic encounters, not opportunities to impress or be validated. This is what Lao Tzu meant by returning to the root. It's not about becoming something new. It's about removing what's not truly you, so that your essence can shine without effort. Let me share with you some real-life examples of people who applied these Taoist principles in their lives, with results that may seem almost too incredible to believe. Maria, a 42-year-old executive, was on the brink of total burnout. She was working 12-hour days, sleeping poorly, suffering from chronic digestive issues, and her personal life was completely fragmented. She came to me saying she had tried everything: traditional therapy, productivity hacks, even medication, but nothing seemed to work in the long run. We began by applying Wu Wei to her daily routine. Instead of trying to optimize every minute, she began to observe her natural energy rhythms. She discovered that her mind was most creative in the mornings, and that pushing through complex tasks late in the day was unnecessary struggle. Within 3 months, she had completely reorganized her schedule to flow with her energy instead of against it. The results were surprising. Not only was she working fewer hours, her productivity and creativity actually increased. Even more important, she began applying the principle of returning to simplicity in her relationships. She stopped trying to impress colleagues and clients with overly elaborate presentations, and instead began communicating more directly and authentically. The result? Her professional relationships became more genuine and trustworthy. Clients began seeking her out specifically because they felt her authenticity in a corporate world full of posturing. Joao, a 35-year-old entrepreneur, had been stuck for 2 years trying to scale his business. He had poured thousands into consulting, aggressive marketing strategies, and efforts to force rapid growth. Nothing was working, and he was on the verge of giving up entirely. When he began studying the Tao Te Ching, something clicked. He realized he was trying to force his business to grow in a way that didn't align with the true nature of what he offered. He realized he was trying to force his business to grow in a way that didn't align with the true nature of what he offered. Instead of pushing, he applied Wu Wei. He focused on deeply serving the clients he already had. He refined his product with care. He built authentic relationships rather than forced networking. And the result was almost magical. Within 6 months, his business began growing organically through referrals. Satisfied clients became natural ambassadors. New partnership opportunities appeared without him chasing them. Both of these cases reveal something fundamental about how life truly works. When you stop fighting the natural flow and begin to collaborate with it, not only do external results improve, your inner experience transforms completely. Work stops being a battlefield and becomes a dance. Relationships stop being calculated transactions and become genuine connections. Challenges stop being threats to your identity and become opportunities for growth and self-discovery. Lao Tzu had a view of human suffering that was radically different, not only from Western philosophy, but even from other Eastern traditions of his time. And this view can liberate you from years of unnecessary internal struggle. In the next few minutes, we'll explore what might be the most liberating insight of the Tao Te Ching, one that, once understood and practiced, can transform not just your relationship with difficult moments, but your relationship with life itself. Take a deep breath with me, because we're about to question some of your most fundamental beliefs about personal growth, overcoming adversity, and what it truly means to evolve. Here is the most shocking truth that Lao Tzu discovered about human nature. 90% of your suffering does not come from difficult circumstances. It comes from a story you tell yourself about those circumstances. It comes from your resistance to what is, from your insistence that reality should be different than it is. Think about this. When something bad happens in your life, a rejection, a loss, a failure, a betrayal, where exactly does the suffering lie? Is it in the event itself? Or is it in the mental narrative you build around what that event means for you, for your future, for your identity? What Lao Tzu realized, and what modern neuroscience now confirms, is that your brain is constantly constructing stories about reality, instead of simply experiencing reality directly. And it's those stories, not the events themselves, that generate most of your emotional anguish. When you grasp this viscerally, not just intellectually, something extraordinary happens. You gain access to a kind of freedom that very few people ever experience. The freedom to choose how you relate to any situation in your life. In the next moments, we'll explore how to turn this insight into something practical. A tool you can use to transform your relationship with anxiety, with anger, with sadness, with fear, all the emotions you may have spent a lifetime trying to avoid or control. But now, you'll begin to meet them with presence and walk through them with a new kind of awareness. To fully understand the liberation that Lao Tzu offers, we first need to explore the mechanism by which we create our own suffering. And this brings us to the most profound and transformative Taoist concept, duality as illusion. Our Western-trained minds are conditioned to think in opposites, right/wrong, good/bad, success/failure, joy/sorrow, win/lose. We constantly categorize our experiences, judge every moment as either desirable or undesirable, and then spend enormous amounts of energy trying to attract more of the good and avoid more of the bad. But Lao Tzu saw something deeper. This division is a mental construct, not an inherent property of reality. In nature, there is no such thing as good or bad weather. There is simply weather. There are no right or wrong seasons, only natural cycles. The yin-yang symbol, so iconic in Eastern philosophy, does not represent two forces fighting each other. It reflects the complementary dance of energies that continuously alternate, each containing the seed of the other, each necessary for the other's existence. Light cannot exist without darkness to define it. Joy has no meaning without the contrast of sorrow. Growth does not occur without the discomfort that pushes us beyond our comfort zone. When you truly understand this, not just intellectually, but cellularly, your relationship to the difficult moments in life completely transforms. You stop seeing them as enemies to be defeated or signs that something is wrong. You begin to recognize them as necessary parts of a larger evolutionary process. A few years ago, I went through what I believe at the time was the most difficult period of my life. A series of losses occurred almost simultaneously. The end of a long-term relationship, serious health issues in my family, significant financial difficulties, and a deep existential crisis regarding the meaning of my work. For months, I fought against that reality. I wasted enormous energy trying to fix each problem quickly, to return to the previous state I considered normal. My mind constantly narrated that this phase was a mistake, something I urgently needed to escape from. Only when I returned to Lao Tzu's teachings, accepting what is, did I begin to try a different approach. Instead of resisting difficulty, I asked myself, What if this isn't a punishment or an error? What if this is exactly what I need right now to become who I'm being called to be? When I stopped fighting reality and began collaborating with it, something extraordinary happened. Those same events that had generated panic and despair began to reveal layers of meaning I had never noticed. The end of the relationship forced me to confront emotional dependency patterns I had carried for decades. The financial difficulties taught me to distinguish between genuine needs and desires conditioned by a consumer society. The existential crisis led me to rediscover a passion that had been buried under years of adult responsibilities. Most importantly, I learned that my ability to find peace did not depend on external circumstances, but on the quality of my inner response to them. That experience showed me how the three fundamental principles of the Tao Te Ching integrate in real life. A higher intelligence flows through life. Even in situations the mind judges as wrong, there's often a larger evolutionary purpose unfolding. Wu Wei. I learned that my energy was much more effective when applied to responding consciously rather than trying to control or avoid life events. Return to simplicity. Through difficulty, I rediscovered parts of myself that had been buried beneath years of conditioning and external expectations. Lao Tzu teaches that the sage does not seek to avoid pain. Doing so would be impossible and counterproductive. Instead, the sage develops the capacity to transform any experience, including pain, into wisdom and growth. This does not mean becoming masochistic or welcoming suffering unnecessarily. It means developing a deep trust that you have the innate capacity to find meaning and growth in whatever life presents. Now, let's do a contemplative practice together to help you embody these teachings, not just mentally, but physically. Close your eyes if you're comfortable. Breathe deeply a few times, allowing your body to relax completely. Bring to mind a situation in your life right now that's causing stress, worry, or resistance. It doesn't have to be dramatic. Maybe a difficult decision, tension in a relationship, or uncertainty about the future. Observe how your mind is narrating that situation. What story is it telling? What should be happening instead? What will go wrong if it doesn't get resolved quickly? Now, gently set aside those stories. Instead of thinking about the situation, simply be present with it. Feel it as it is, without interpretation or judgment. Breathe consciously and ask, if I trusted that a higher intelligence is operating through this situation, if I believe this is here to teach me something important, how would my approach shift? Don't force an answer. Just remain open. Let any insight arise naturally. Now, place a hand over your heart and acknowledge your own courage. It takes courage to stay present with difficulty. It takes courage to question mental narratives. It takes courage to trust life when it doesn't match your plans. When you're ready, slowly open your eyes and come back fully present. What you've just experienced is a taste of the freedom Lao Tzu offers. The freedom to choose how you relate to any situation. This doesn't magically solve all your external problems, but it radically transforms your ability to navigate them while maintaining inner peace and mental clarity. This wisdom is especially crucial in the age we live in. We're bombarded with constant stimulation. We compare ourselves endlessly on social media. We're pressured to have instant opinions about everything. The modern mind is always in judgment mode, like /dislike, agree/disagree, approve/disapprove. We rarely experience reality directly. We're filtering everything through our conditioned preferences. Lao Tzu invites us to something revolutionary. Regular periods of non-judgment. Moments when we observe life without instantly labeling it as good or bad, right or wrong. Imagine what it would be like to spend an entire day not judging anything. Not the people you meet, not the weather, not the traffic, not even your own emotions. Simply observing, like watching clouds move across the sky. People who practice this regularly report a dramatic decrease in background anxiety. When you stop constantly evaluating whether each moment is appropriate or inappropriate, you free up vast energy to be genuinely present. Relationships improve because you stop projecting expectations onto others. Decisions become easier because you're no longer resisting reality. We've reached the end of an extraordinary journey through the Tao Te Ching. But before we part, I have one final offering. If these last few minutes have touched something deep within you, if you found here not just information, but a genuine wisdom that could shape how you live, then I invite you to make a commitment. Not just to click subscribe, though that helps us continue this journey together, but a deeper commitment to bring these teachings beyond the screen into your real life, your real relationships, your real challenges. When you join Axiom Sage, you're joining a living community. A place where people share not just insights, but real transformations. A place of support, celebration, and depth. In the comments, you'll find stories that rarely happen anywhere else online. You'll see people walking through darkness with grace. You'll see breakthroughs shared with honesty. Each new video will deepen our journey, not with fast hacks, but with real, slow-growing wisdom. We'll explore the Buddha's teachings on transforming suffering into compassion. We'll dive into Confucius's wisdom on harmonious relationships. We'll discover Zhuangzi's playful insights on true freedom. And you, your voice, your questions, your presence are vital to that journey. If you feel this is your place, if you feel a longing for a more contemplative, meaningful approach to life, click subscribe now and turn on notifications. But more importantly, leave a comment. Tell us, which of today's teachings resonated with you the most? How do you intend to apply it? Your participation makes this space real. We began this journey with a question: why? Even after achieving everything you thought you wanted, do you still feel an unexplained emptiness? Now you carry not just an intellectual answer, but a lived understanding that the void isn't a problem to be solved through external success. It is a portal to something infinitely more valuable. Your direct connection to the source of life itself, to the Tao that cannot be named, but can be lived with every conscious breath. The emptiness doesn't disappear when you find the Tao. It reveals itself as sacred space, a cosmic womb where true self can finally be born and flourish. This is just one of many journeys we can take together. Every sacred text, every authentic teaching is a key to unexplored dimensions of your own nature. If you feel the call to keep exploring, to make Eastern wisdom not just a hobby, but a living force in your life, I'll be here, creating bridges between ancient treasures and the practical challenges of modern life. For now, take one last deep breath with me. Feel yourself connected not just to me or this community, but to every seeker throughout history who gave their life to questions like these. You are a link in this golden chain of wisdom that stretches across the ages. Your journey matters. Your evolution matters. Your contribution to the collective awakening of humanity matters. May the teachings of Lao Tzu become not just ideas in your mind, but living wisdom in your heart. May you find the courage to live your most authentic truth. And may your life become a reflection of the harmony and peace you've rediscovered within. Thank you for walking this extraordinary path with me. Until next time, keep flowing with the Tao that cannot be named, but that pulses through every breath of your being.